Part 46. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 451. Is it really you? I thought we had the same name. Wan Quillen held Feng Qingxiu's hand, filled with emotion, and then complained, we agreed on the train that year that you would come find me when you have time. Play, but I hung came several times, but you kept me waiting for 2 years. I wanted to go to the countryside to find you, but I couldn't do it for various reasons. As soon as her words came out, everyone who was chatting was stunned. Quillen, do you know each other? Wan Quillen smiled and answered Cheng's mother, yes, mother, I went on a business trip to the southwest 2 years ago. When I came back, didn't I tell you that I met a very beautiful girl on the train? It was Qingxiu. Cheng's mother thought for a moment and finally remembered, yes, you said that your daughter's target was a soldier. That's me, Feng Qingxiu said sheepishly. When Ajong was injured, I hurried away, and then Ajong and I hurried home to recuperate. We got married, recuperated, and studied medicine. One after another, he left. Now, I have a child. I have given birth to a child and taken care of the child. I have been busy all day long. I have been to the city a few times and I have thought about looking for Quillen. I can't call her Sister Quillen anymore, I have to call her Aunt Quillen. I'm afraid. Others say that we are following the trend, so we always have the nerve to visit. Wan Quillen smiled and said, it depends on what you say about following the crowd. But Zibao is so cute. You can safely put him here. Dad and Mom will take care of him during the day. You and I will take care of him at night. I promise not to make him lose any weight. Although she has no children, Wan Quillen likes children very much. Zibao grew up so well that she couldn't help but take him from her mother-in-law's arms to hers. Time makes us grow old, and before we know it, I have become a grandma. Come on, Zibao calls me grandma. Call grandma and grandma will make egg custard for you. Hearing the word egg custard, Zibao's eyes immediately lit up. He went out early in the morning, so he didn't eat egg custard today. Seeing this, Cheng's mother hurriedly said, baby, let's play with the third grandma, my wife will do it for you. Grandma Cheng, let me help you. Feng Qingxiu quickly picked up the bamboo basket she brought and followed her to the kitchen. This municipal party committee compound is really a compound. It is a big house of a capitalist. There are courtyards within courtyards, some are big and some are small. The houses allocated to Cheng Baoqiu and Wan Quillen were mainly based on the area of the main house. In fact, there was a small courtyard outside, a small courtyard with a kitchen and toilet inside. There was an earthen stove in the kitchen, but it looked like it was rarely used. There is a briquette stove next to it, hundreds of briquettes piled in the corner, and a copper cooking kettle sitting on the briquette stove. Feng Qingxiu took out an egg from the basket and handed it over. Grandma Cheng, Zibao is now more than 9 months old. He only needs 1 egg custard a day and 1 egg at a time. I don't dare to give him more. It's a blessing to be able to eat. Why don't you give it to him? Mother Cheng took out a bowl, broke the eggs, and stirred them in it. Enough nutrition. Feng Qingxiu smiled. While steaming egg custard, Mother Cheng pointed to the front and said, in the old days, our house would have been a decent residence for servants, like a housekeeper or something like that. It was a big yard, the main house, where Secretary Niu and his family lived. There, 3 generations of grandparents. Even though the yard is bigger than us and the rooms are more than us, it's just not enough to live in. Wan Quillen handed Zibao to her husband, rolled up her sleeves and came over to cook, saying, Zioxiu, I'll show you around the courtyard another day. It will be easier to get in and out in the future. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 452. Mother Cheng returned to the main room with the egg custard and said to Cheng Baoqiu, go to Secretary Wang's house to borrow 2 taels of oil, and then ask him if he can lend us a pig's ear he bought today. We can buy it back tomorrow. Cheng Baokyo nodded and said, let's go now. I'll go to the state-owned restaurant to see what dishes there are. Father Lu stopped him and said, don't go. He picked up a bamboo basket on the ground and handed it to Cheng Baokyo, and Cheng, we brought a lot of rice, flour, grain, and oil. I remember bringing oil cans. You don't have to be polite as a family, let alone borrowing from outsiders. Let you borrow it, and we will. I'm sorry to stay for dinner. Third child, please send Zibao to the kitchen. I can't leave, lest he be afraid of others and make everyone uneasy. Cheng Baokyo sent it over without any courtesy. Third uncle, you also brought over the bags of food, as well as the dried vegetables, pickled vegetables, and green vegetables I brought. I had planned to rent a house in the city, but when I arrived, I was fully prepared. Feng Qingxiu opened the bamboo basket and took the vegetables one by one. He took out the jar containing oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar, and took out another strip of bacon, and Quillen, let's make bacon rice for lunch. You guys are living a good life. Wang Quillen thought of the things Cheng Baokyo brought from their house. Thanks to the care of Comrade Ajong, we send a lot of special products here every year. Otherwise, I, a female prostitute, would never be able to get these things. Feng Qingxiu said with a smile, I have a private plot at home, which is convenient for eating. The weather is getting warmer, and the vegetables in the private plot are very luxuriant. Before Father Lu left, Feng Qingxiu never forgot to tell him to plant all the vegetables that should be planted when he returns home. Father Lu said, you can stay with your third uncle Anan and 11 Bao and study hard. Didn't you leave your bicycles at home? When Tianwan comes to school every week, I ask him to bring you vegetables and food. By the way, leave the bicycle at Lao San's house. At the beginning of this spring, Lu Tianjun went to high school. His grades have always been very good and he was admitted to the city's high school with excellent results. He went to junior high school in the county town for the first year. In the second year, Wanglu Brigade opened the school. He went back to Wanglu Brigade for another year with his junior high school classmates from all over the country. The junior high school lasted for 2 years and he has graduated. High school requires living on campus, and the school is too far from home. Students with urban household registration receive monthly food stamp subsidies and a certain supply of rations. They use food stamps and money to buy meals in the canteen. However, peasant students like Lu Tianjun do not have food stamps, so they can only exchange food for it. Coarse grains were exchanged for coarse grains, and fine grains were exchanged for fine grains. Most of the peasant students brought wild vegetables, wheat bran, and even bran from home and steamed them in the cafeteria as food. Lu Tianjun secretly hid the brown rice he brought. Not even a grain of rice was taken out. There are not many students in the school, and it seems a bit sparse. A class that was supposed to have more than 40 people now has only more than 20 people left, 7 or 8 of whom are students from rural areas. The reason is very simple. They cannot afford to go to school or eat. After 3 years of famine, many people have simply dropped out of school. There is one day off every week, and that day is the day when the farmer students go home to get food. After school on Saturday afternoon, everyone rushed home and came back with dry food or food the next afternoon. Lu Tianjun was the same as everyone else. He dressed about the same and ate about the same, coarse grains and pickles. He never brought any fine grains from home to school. Occasionally he would use food stamps and money to buy a cornmeal steamed bun to improve his life. Apart from his grades, he keeps a low profile and is so low-key that people almost forget that he has such a classmate. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 453. Feng Qingxiu participated in the training. She could go home 1 day a week, change clothes, and get food, just like high school students. She usually ate in the cafeteria of the staff hospital. If she had food coupons, she could buy food with them. If she didn't have food coupons, she would exchange them with food. Of course, she chose to use food coupons. She had enough food to fill her stomach privately, and she bought very little food with food coupons. There were a total of 30 educated youths participating in the training. These were the only ones who could come from all the production brigades in the city. There were men and women, the oldest was 30 years old, and the youngest was 16 or 17 years old. Everyone was very hard-working and eager to learn. The hospital taught them basic medical knowledge for half a month and then arranged clinical practice for them. This practice was not to let them treat people by themselves or perform surgery, but to let them learn from doctors in this field. Perhaps considering the difference between men and women, young women were arranged in the obstetrics and gynecology department. Delivery, postpartum care, etc., no young men. In addition to Feng Qingxiu, there are 2 young men and women from traditional Chinese medicine families who have learned medical skills since elementary school, and they are even better than Feng Qingxiu. As for the others, they have no foundation at all. So when those people are starting from scratch, Feng Qingxiu and 2 traditional Chinese medicine descendants named Zhou Changfeng and Chen Yuan can treat patients, diagnose pulses and prescribe medicine after a certain assessment. Most of them are minor illnesses. The 3 of them are very good at it, and the prescriptions they prescribe have never been rejected by the doctors who lead them. Feng Qingxiu especially cherishes the rare clinical practice, and the other 2 people are obviously the same. They get along day and night and soon develop a revolutionary friendship. Zhou Changfeng and Chen Yuan both have urban household registration, and their fathers are brothers and sisters. They are both taught by Chen Yuan's grandfather. They call each other brother and sister. They came to participate in this training just because they want to be doctors. People like them who learn from their elders are qualified to practice medicine unless they are admitted to the National Medical University and obtain relevant certificates. You already have a child. Chen Yuan is 1 year older than Feng Qingxiu, but she is not married. She has a lively personality and a round apple face, but she is a little short. She looked up and stared at Feng Qingxiu's face, which was still very delicate and bright even with makeup on, in disbelief. I can't tell at all. I thought you were a big girl like me. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, my son will be 1 year old soon, and he is still a big girl. Chen Yuan sighed, no wonder you can communicate with those women who come to see the doctor without any obstacles. The city has a small population, so there are fewer people coming to the staff hospital for treatment. When they are free, the 3 of them privately exchange their medical skills and views, learn from each other's strengths and weaknesses, and learn from each other. After learning from them, Feng Qingxiu became more and more aware of her shortcomings. She was a latecomer, and her foundation was not solid, far inferior to Zhou Changfeng and Chen Yuan. They started learning soup songs from their elders since they were young, and grew up bathed in the fragrance of medicine. It seems that they have developed into a couple. However, Feng Qingxiu also has strengths. Her strength is that she has accumulated a lot of experience in treating diseases and delivering babies. Although Zhou Changfeng and Chen Yuan are older than her, they have less experience than her. They have never been to the countryside to treat patients and have only a superficial understanding of some aspects. No wonder Wu Zheng said that her experience is a wealth when he recognized her as a medical student. Doctors who have experienced and those who have not experienced are completely different. Chen Yuan said, my grandfather told me that life experience is very important for a doctor. It is related to the communication between doctors and patients. For someone like me who has not experienced some things, it is easy to communicate with patients in a way that is not right. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 454. After the doctor got off work, those who participated in the training dispersed one after another. Those who came from afar returned to the dormitory, and those who lived nearby went home. Feng Qingxiu followed the familiar route back to the Municipal Party Committee compound. Since the Municipal Party Committee compound is a capitalist mansion, it is naturally surrounded by old houses and alleys. She walked through an alley, and when she was approaching the Municipal Party Committee compound, she suddenly heard a burst of yelling and cursing in a courtyard behind the Municipal Party Committee compound. Chen Baoqiu's family lived in a respectable servant's house at the back of the mansion. They usually entered and exited through the back door, so Feng Qingxiu also used the back door. The main door was too far away from the house where they lived. "You are just an old bitch, dirty and obscene. You have 2 arms that can be used by thousands of people to sleep on. You can force your mouth to be licked by thousands of people. When it comes to liberation and New China, you act like a good girl. No matter what, you are also a bitch. Who asked you to give my son something to eat? I am afraid that you will starve my son to death without eating anything from you, bitch." Along with the yelling and cursing, there were 2 slaps. As soon as the slaps ended, the child cried again, "I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You are not allowed to eat even if you starve to death, do you hear me? If you take anything from that old bitch again, see if I don't break your hands and smash your mouth. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I want to eat. I want to eat." The voice was soft and it was a girl's voice. "Mom, you give your brother the cornbread to eat and let me drink water, but I can't drink enough. I'm also hungry. Ah, I want to eat Lauda too." All he got in return for his words was a few slaps, and his voice gradually became lower and lower as he cried and sobbed until he could no longer be heard. Feng Qingxiu told Chen Mu and Wang Quilin. Wang Quilin hugged Zibao and sighed, "I know who it is. The one who scolded is Wang Erniu, and the one who is scolded is Chen Swiniang." Before liberation, Chen Swiniang was in the brothel. Number 1, she was sold into a brothel by her parents when she was a child. Because of her good looks, the madam carefully trained her. When she grew up, she was as beautiful as a fairy. She became famous and had many guests. After liberation, the state raided the brothel and released her. Women were encouraged to be good, and jobs were arranged for them. However, many of them still carried the habits of the brothels and were very difficult to manage. They had to undergo strict education for several years before they got over it, worked honestly to make money, and got married under the arrangement of the state. People. They are all poor women, and it is the country that liberates them from the sea of suffering. Chen Swiniang is the most active one. She actively participates in labor and actively gets rid of the bad habits she formed when she was a prostitute. Now she works as a female worker in a textile factory. However, she is unwilling to marry according to the country's arrangements and is still single. He used to be the top one and was taken care of by wealthy gentry and warlords. Even if he is good now, he often attracts criticism. Wang Erniu's husband was a miner. He often worked in the mines and did heavy work. However, their family was assigned to the same yard as Chen Swiniang. Wang Erniu was always worried that Chen Swiniang would seduce her husband and criticized her every day. Chen Swiniang was too lazy to argue with her. Who knew? Poor Wang Erniu's daughter couldn't afford to eat, so she secretly stuffed a steamed bun for her, but Wang Erniu discovered it. Wang Erniu was so angry that she beat Xiao Yan severely. In the evening, Xiao Yan developed a high fever and talked nonsense. Wang Erniu was very scared and knocked on Cheng Baoqiu's door in the middle of the night with Xiao Yan in her arms. Cheng's mother and Wang Quilin took Feng Qingxiu to meet the neighbors, so they all knew that Cheng's father and Cheng's mother's savior attended medical training and lived with their children in their home. You must be considerate of my seeking death by updating 2 books at the same time. After the divine calculation is completed, this book will be updated. Oh, back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 455. When Feng Qingxiu saw Xiao Yan, she became furious. The 7 or 8-year-old girl's hair was sparse and yellow, and her skinny face had obvious slap marks. The corners of her mouth were also broken, and blood stains were looming. However, because she was too thin and had no flesh on her face, the slap marks were not swollen. Stand up. Extreme hunger, fright, and the coldness of the late spring, finally made the thin body unable to bear it any longer. After taking Xiao Yan's temperature, which was 39 degrees, Feng Qingxiu first fed her an antipyretic pill, then took out the alcohol from the medicine box and wiped her limbs, soles of hands, feet, armpits, neck, and chest. More than half an hour passed. The little girl obviously felt much more comfortable and her brows relaxed slightly. Her body temperature didn't drop that quickly. Feng Qingxiu took her temperature again and asked Wang Quilin to make a bowl of Zibao's milk powder for her to drink. The little girl seemed to be awake and drank heavily. After that, she looked at Feng Qingxiu's gentle and beautiful face under the light with her wide-open eyes. She couldn't help but smile and muttered, "It tastes so delicious. I must have seen a fairy in the sky. I want to be a fairy forever. I hope I won't wake up from such a dream." He tilted his head, closed his eyes, and fell asleep. Hungry, scared, and cold, Feng Qingxiu wrapped up the little girl's clothes with a cold face. She didn't want to see Wang Erniu's disgusting face, so she didn't even look at her. "You should be lucky that you are so beautiful." The slap didn't break her eardrums or make her deaf. "You are also a woman, you are also a mother, why are you so cruel?" When an adult is angry, it is easy to miss a child's face by slapping him in the face. It has been a common occurrence since ancient times for adults to slap a child in the face so that the child can no longer hear. Wang Quilin was woken up in the middle of the night and saw Xiao Yan's miserable state. She was also very angry. "Wang Erniu, leaders say that women can hold up half the sky. The propaganda department promotes gender equality every day. You have donkey hair in your ears. Listen. Don't you understand? If you continue to beat Xiao Yan, okay, let Zheng Datu's family go to farm, and your whole family will go back. I won't see you." Zheng Datu was Wang Erniu's husband. He originally had a rural registered permanent residence. Because he was tall and strong, he was selected when the coal mines went to the countryside to recruit workers. From then on, he became a coal miner, receiving wages and eating commercial grain. Although Wang Erniu and his son Dahu Xiao Yan live in the city with Zheng Datu, they do not have urban household registration. Without an urban household registration, there is no food supply. If they go back to farm, the three of them can participate in the grain distribution at the end of the year. If they don't go back and have no work points, then the production brigade is not stupid. A family of 4, including Zheng Datu's parents in the countryside, all depended on Zheng Datu's salary. Upon hearing that Wang Quilin was going to send Zheng Datu back to his hometown, Wang Erniu immediately became anxious. "Director Wang, you must not get rid of Datu. If Datu loses this job, how will you let us 3 live?" Wang Quilin shook off her hand that was tugging on her sleeve. "If you don't want Datu to go home to farm, okay, from now on you should treat Xiao Yan well and treat them equally as brothers and sisters. Otherwise, I will put Zheng Datu on the expulsion list. You have lived in the city for several years, and you know that various government agencies, coal mines, and factories are discussing laying off some rural workers and letting them return to their hometowns to work in agriculture, so as to reduce the pressure on cities and increase the rural labor force. On this list. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 456. Wang Erniu nodded like a chicken pecking at rice, and said with a smile, "Director Wang, don't worry, I will never hit Xiao Yan again, I will never hit her again. Don't let the big guy be on the list. I'm just angry that she has contact with that old bitch Chen Swiniang. That old bitch is so dirty. Why didn't I kill her when God thundered? She poses like a water snake with her eyes wide open to help her carry water. She has rough hands and feet, and a weathered face. She is afraid that Zheng Datu will not want her. Zheng Datu has a salary and eats commercial food. People in her hometown say she is not good enough for Zheng Datu, so she follows her so closely because she is afraid that Zheng Datu has someone outside and will divorce her when he comes back. Divorced, now that the marriage is free, the captain of their production team no longer wants his mother-in-law. Although Chen Swiniang is much older than herself, she is extremely good-looking and looks younger than herself. She wears cream every day, has a sleek hair, and her skin is white and thin. Even a man would stop and look at her. Two families living in the same courtyard, can they not be afraid? She just wanted to drive Chen Swiniang out and stay far away. Sometimes, Wang Erniu heard some idle chatter. They said that before liberation, only rich people could see Chen Swiniang. A face was worth 1,000 pieces of gold. Many high-ranking officials and businessmen from other places came here because of her reputation. Now they don't spend any money. You can also see Chen Swiniang every day, as many times as you want, which is much more cost-effective than those rich people. Fart, Wang Quilin glared at her. Chen Swiniang buys water every day, and the water tanker is parked directly in front of her house. Does Zheng Datu need to carry water? Zheng Datu works underground all day long, and occasionally takes a day or two to rest. What's wrong with him carrying buckets of water for neighbors when he and his children are all at home? My old man, Chen, carries water for this one and that for that one. Do I have to suspect Secretary Niu's wife that they live in front of us? Ask Lao Cheng to help carry water the most. Wang Erniu was speechless after what she said. Wang Quilin was still annoyed and snorted. Chen Swiniang was persecuted by the feudal society in the past and fell into an unclean place. It was not her own will. After liberation, she devoted herself to reform. Now she is a woman from a good family. There are no brothels in our country anymore. If you don't practice moral ethics and keep talking about a whore, I will tell the Women's Federation that your idea is very wrong and will easily have a bad influence. Drive you back to the countryside. If you are a good woman, why don't you get married? Wang Erniu muttered. If Chen Swiniang doesn't get married, she won't make people feel at ease. Feng Qingxiu pulled Wang Quilin, who couldn't explain to Wang Erniu, and said to Wang Erniu, who stipulates that women from good families must get married. It is stipulated that women from good families must get married when they reach a certain age. If they don't get married, they will forcibly marry or be fined. That was something from the old feudal era that had been abandoned long ago, and is now a new custom in the new China and the new society. No, during the liberation and founding of the People's Republic of China, the state arranged for many unmarried people to get married again, which solved the problem of many singles not being able to start a family. Wang Erniu would not be fooled. All the concubines of the landlord's family were arranged to get married. Even if the state makes arrangements, it is to respect the person involved, Wang Quilin said. She had been in contact with Chen Swiniang and knew that Chen Swiniang had grown up in a brothel and her health had long been broken and she could not give birth. She was not willing to marry a widower with children and had to work hard to take care of the family. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 457. Wang Erniu didn't believe it and firmly believed that Chen Swiniang was just trying to hook up with her if she didn't get married. However, under Wang Quilin's threats and inducements, she promised Wang Quilin that she would never scold Chen Swiniang or beat up the little girl again. Yan. When such an incident happened, Wang Quilin and Feng Qingxiu were no longer sleepy at all. Just as Wang Erniu and her daughter were sent away, they heard four ding-dang-dang-dang sounds. When they raised their heads, the hands of the wooden clock on the wall pointed to 4 o'clock. Yes, Wang Quilin was older and couldn't fall asleep without feeling sleepy. She said to Feng Qingxiu, "You go back to the house and lie down for a while. I'll queue up to buy meat and come back to make minced meat for Zibao. I'll see if there's any pork liver." "Auntie, I can't sleep even if I keep you company." Looking at the matter of favoring boys over girls, I felt uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable and cannot sleep well. The three of them took Zibao to sleep on the big bed in the east room. Mother Cheng was watching over Zibao, so she was not worried. If there are guests at home, men and women must sleep separately. Even the male host and hostess cannot share the same room. This makes Feng Qingxiu particularly embarrassed. She is worried that it will affect the married life of Cheng Baoqiu and Wang Quilin. At that time, she wanted to go out to rent a house. The Cheng family I tried my best to stay, but in the end I couldn't leave. Fortunately, I can go home once a week. Feng Qingxiu wanted to go with her, so Wang Quilin took the dough bag. Looking at Feng Qingxiu's puzzled eyes, she smiled and said, "It's a waste of manpower for two people to queue up to buy meat. Now you go to the grain store to queue up to buy food, and I'll queue up to buy meat. If you go early, it will be your turn early, and if you go late, there may not be anything to sell to us. Tomorrow is Sunday, and we don't have to go to work. People who can't go to work to buy meat or food will definitely flock here, so we won't join in the fun." If it weren't for Zheng Xiaoyan, she would have planned to buy it on Sunday and queue up at midnight so that she could have a good rest after buying it. Cheng's father and Cheng's mother are both old and have to watch Zibao at home during the day. Cheng Baoqiu and Wang Quilin were worried that they would get up early and queue up to buy food, so they didn't move after the invoices and wages were issued at the beginning of the month. They only ate the stored food and Feng Qingxiu. "Bring food." "Okay," Feng Qingxiu nodded. After living in the Cheng family for so long, she also knew a lot about the situation in the city. Wang Quilin gave her the flour bag, rice bag, grain book, and grain stamps without giving any money. She knew that Feng Qingxiu was not short of money. Anyway, the price of grain was low and she couldn't spend much money, but she would let Feng Qingxiu do it. "It's peaceful to live here. Your third uncle and I are the only ones in our family who have wages and food stamps. He weighs 27 pounds and I weigh 25 pounds. The thickness is 7:3. You can buy it as you see fit. Now that cornmeal has been classified as coarse grains again, you buy some cornmeal and some sweet potato flour. It doesn't matter if you mix the two together. If you have fine grains and white rice, you can buy them and make noodles and meat porridge for Zibao." Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "I brought some rice and flour." She brought all the coarse and fine grains with her. She ate the coarse grains with the Cheng family, and most of the fine grains went to Zibao. "You brought it here." "What we bought was the supply provided by the country." The two of them turned off the lights, took flashlights, and went out. Wang Quilin pushed out Cheng Baoqiu's old bicycle and said, "We bought food, just put it in the car to save us the trouble." The grain store and the non-staple food store were close to each other. Before the couple could even walk in front of them, they found a long queue at the door. Men, women, and children, some were sitting and taking a nap, some were curled up on sacks and fast asleep, and some were full of energy chatting with the people around them. There were also empty baskets with stones in the middle to represent people queuing up. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 458. Wang Quilin hurriedly sent Feng Qingxiu to the door of the grain store, lined up at the back of the queue, and said to a middle-aged woman in front of Feng Qingxiu, "Xuanyang, this is my niece's first time coming back to buy grain. Please take care of her." Don't worry, ask someone to jump in front of her. They have always claimed that they only recognize Feng Qingxiu as their savior and do not reveal their relationship with the Lu family, so they do not introduce her as their nephew-in-law. The middle-aged woman turned back and smiled sweetly. Okay, Director Wang, don't worry. Her smile was still charming despite the dim light of the flashlight. Feng Qingxiu was shocked. In terms of appearance, Chen Xuanyang's facial features are as beautiful as Wang Qiao's. Now she is older, her eyes are covered with fine lines, and her skin is no longer smooth, but there is a charm in her bones, a kind of charm that makes people look at her. I just feel that she is very beautiful. Even if she is dressed tightly and does not show any curves, she cannot hide her elegance. After Wang Quilin left, Chen Xuanyang turned around and saw the astonishment in Feng Qingxiu's eyes. She immediately put away the smile on her face and kept her expression blank, as if it was just Feng Qingxiu's hallucination. However, there was no ridicule or scorn in Feng Qingxiu's eyes, only admiration for beauty, and Chen Xuanyang was very happy. Does Feng Qingxiu not know her former identity? Impossible. At 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, Wang Erniu sent Xiao Yan to Chengbaoqiu for medical treatment. When she came back, she yelled at her son to open the door. Chen Xuanyang heard clearly in her room, and with Wang Erniu's mouth, she would definitely scold herself in front of Chengbao Wangquilin, and would often reveal her old stories in front of others. Another point is that Feng Qingxiu lives in Chengbao's country, and the Cheng family will also tell her about the situation nearby. It's my first time to buy food. There are a lot of things I don't understand. Please remind me, Sister. Feng Qingxiu took the initiative to say hello. My name is Feng Qingxiu. I am participating in doctor training. I am temporarily living with Uncle Cheng and Quilin. Aunt's house. Chen Xuanyang hurriedly smiled and said, it's good to study medicine. Being a doctor helps the world and saves people and accumulates merit. Later it will be your turn to buy food. I will not leave after I buy it. I will help you buy it before leaving. You don't have to worry. Buying food is very easy. Hand over the grain book, food stamps, and money, and the clerk will automatically weigh the grain for you according to the amount and thickness standards on the grain book. She added another sentence, saying, invoices are issued on April 1st, and the second day has the most people buying food. Basically, the whole family goes out, because everyone is waiting for this ration to fill their stomachs. Today is Saturday, the 6th again. There are only about 10 people in front of us. There were not many people in front of them, but as time went by, more and more people lined up behind them, and the queue grew. When the grain store opened at 8 o'clock, Feng Qingxiu turned around and saw a long queue. It was crowded, at least 110 people. At some point, someone with good intentions moved the empty basket that was placed at the front to replace the queue. Now the owner of the empty basket has arrived. It is actually Wang Erniu, who is cursing with her hands on her hips, that one will be cut into pieces with 1,000 cuts. Why are you so mean to move my basket out of the queue? She cursed a lot, but no one paid her any attention, so she had to obediently go to the back of the queue. Feng Qingxiu heard the person behind her whisper, everyone else was queuing up, waiting in line non-stop, but she was good, put down the basket, and went home to sleep soundly. She wanted to be in front of the queue, but also didn't want to be tired, so why? Is there such a good thing? She's fine with it. If someone else takes away her basket, there's nothing she can do. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 459. While the people behind were talking, it was Chen Xuanyang's turn soon. She took out her grain book, grain coupons, and money, walked into the grain store, and weighed 15 kilograms of cornmeal neatly. While holding the flour bag with both hands, she let the clerk pour the weighed cornmeal into the flour bag, and turned to face Feng Qingxiu, who followed, said, "I work in a textile factory and eat in the cafeteria at noon every day, so I have to keep some food stamps in my hand." After she bought it, she took the flour bag and stepped aside. Feng Qingxiu hurried forward. When she got closer, she realized that today there were only cornmeal and dried sweet potatoes, not any refined grains, and the quality was not very good. "What are you buying?" "How much?" the clerk asked impatiently. Feng Qingxiu hurriedly handed over the food book and food stamps, 35 pounds of cornmeal. The food stamps Wang Quilin gave her were 35 kilograms of coarse grain stamps, which was the supply standard for this month. "If there is no sweet potato flour, just buy corn flour. When I get home in the afternoon or tomorrow morning, she will bring some back from home." The clerk looked at her grain book and immediately smiled. He weighed the cornmeal for her neatly and put it into the flour bag. "Is it from Mayor Cheng and Director Wang's family? I've never seen you before." Cornmeal is divided into 9 and 2 1 pound, a total of 3 yuan and 2 cents. The rough grain is 7.2 cents, the processing fee is 1 cent, and the finished grain is 92 cents. The loss between the rough grain and the finished product should be taken into account. Feng Qingxiu made a small calculation in her mind, handed over the money, took back the food book, and took away the flour bag. There were too many people in the grain store, and everyone was vying for the first place. There were still people who had not queued up and wanted to jump in line, shouting that they had to go to work immediately, but the other party refused to give in. It was noisy, and Chen Swiniang and she finally managed to squeeze out of the crowd. Looked at each other's embarrassment, laughed, and looked very pleased with each other. At dawn, Feng Qingxiu could see Chen Swiniang's appearance more clearly. No wonder Wang Ernia was so scared. She was indeed beautiful, the kind of beauty that was deep in her bones and had not been affected by time. She looked like she was about 40 years old, but Feng Qingxiu knew that her actual age must be more than 40 years old. Chen Swiniang pulled up her gauze to cover her face. "If you don't mind it, I'll talk to you when I have time." Feng Qingxiu smiled and nodded. When she saw Wang Quilin waving to her, she quickly turned away from Chen Swiniang and walked to Wang Quilin. "Auntie, there are only cornmeal and dried sweet potatoes, so I bought cornmeal. We have plenty of dried sweet potatoes and sweet potato noodles at home. I will bring a sack back tomorrow, which will be enough for several months. Sweet potatoes hurt your stomach, so eat less if possible." Okay, you can buy whatever you want." Wang Quilin showed her the basket in her hand and said proudly, "I'm lucky today. I bought half a pair of pig livers and half a pig's head. They don't need any tickets. They only use 1 or 2 meat tickets. I bought a small piece of lean meat to make porridge for Zibao. I will use the remaining meat to stew the pig head when I come back in the afternoon. You can take some back home to satisfy the cravings of the elderly and children." "Auntie, thank you for your trouble." Feng Qingxiu thanked her. "What can I say? Thanks to my family. Let's go quickly. Send your things home and go to work quickly. If you wait any longer, it will be too late." At this time, many government agencies were not very strict in their management. Occasionally arriving late and leaving early once or twice was fine, because usually many staff members had nothing to do, sitting in the office drinking tea, chatting and reading newspapers. Feng Qingxiu hurried to the hospital and found that everything was quiet from top to bottom. Zhou Changfeng and Chen Yuan were whispering to each other. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 460. Feng Qingxiu had nothing to do. She said hello to the doctor who took them and ran to the department where there were patients to help. Not many people come to the hospital to give birth, unless it is difficult to give birth, so there are not many people in the obstetrics and gynecology department. However, There are many children with colds and fevers in the pediatric department who are brought to see the doctor by adults. Feng Qingxiu helped Dr. Zhao and learned a lot experience. It is free for urban workers to come to the hospital for medical treatment, but this is not necessarily the case for non-employees. However, when family members of employees come to see a doctor, the fees charged are very low. After being busy for a long time, I stopped in the afternoon. On Saturday afternoon, the doctor got off work relatively early and went to work for an hour after lunch. Feng Qingxiu naturally came home a little earlier than usual. As soon as she entered the house, she saw Zibao's father and Cheng's mother squatting in the yard and clapping their hands to Zibao not far away. Zibao, who had taken off his cotton-padded clothes and trousers, was relaxed and dressed. Opening his crotch pants, he walked tremblingly on his chubby legs, walking towards the second elder step by step. When he was almost in front of the second elder, he became impatient, quickened his pace, and fell to the ground. The little guy lay on the ground, kicked his legs, pressed his lips, but didn't cry. When he found that no one came to hug him, he got up quickly, continued to walk forward, and threw himself into Mother Cheng's arms with a smile. He was not light, and the impact knocked Mother Cheng off her butt. "Hey, my little baby, my wife's old bones can't stand your bumps." Mother Cheng patted the dirt on his body with a smile, stood up, and held his chubby hand. "Let's go, Mrs. I'll take you to eat some pork liver paste." Feng Qingxiu walked over and said, "Nai, let me do it." Cheng's mother smiled and said, "I can still handle a bowl of pig liver puree. You can play while you do it, and don't delay Zibao and I's development of our relationship." Lu Zibao seemed to be angry because he couldn't see his mother during the day. He obediently followed Cheng's mother into the house, but kept looking back, secretly glancing at Feng Qingxiu, as if to say, "Come and hug me, come and hug me, hug me." "Zhai Zimoru Omu." Feng Qingxiu smiled and picked him up. "Zibao, do you miss your mother?" She kissed Zibao's fat face, and the little guy immediately beamed, rubbed her face, rubbed the dirt from his face onto her face, and said happily, "Mom. Mom. Mom." Two fat arms were wrapped around my mother's neck, looking extremely affectionate. "After all, you are kissing Mom." Cheng's mother patted Zibao's fat butt. "Okay, Zibao, let Mom feed you pig liver paste, and my wife will eat the big pig's head. Let's have a good meal tonight." After a while, Lu Tianjun came to ride his bicycle, but she also stayed behind. Every Saturday afternoon, they finish school a few hours earlier than usual to make it easier for students who live far away to get home. Father Cheng also said at the side, "What are you going back for? What can I do to you if I stay here with your wife for one night? I will go back with your aunt early tomorrow morning, and bring some pig head meat back to drink with your father. Young man, just do it quickly." Point. Lu Tianjun smiled and said, "Master, you're welcome." He is the eldest grandson of Lu's eldest son. Now that he is getting older, Lu's father has already told him about his relationship with Cheng Baoqiu. Cheng's father liked Lu Tianjun very much, and Zibao went outside after eating and drinking. One look and they knew that he wanted to go out to play, so the father and son held Zibao's hand and went out, while Feng Qingxiu and Cheng's mother took care of half of the things at home. The pig head is stewed in an earthen stove. Mother Cheng said, "I waited at the door today to buy a few bundles of firewood. The meat from the old pot stove is delicious." Chapter 6, 4 more chapters will be updated in the afternoon, which will be 10,000 words. Please vote, recommend monthly votes, and all kinds of votes.